It's the night before Valentine's Day, and what are you doing? I'm live streaming on YouTube with my good friends from the Libertarian Party of South Carolina. This is Parenting Porcupines. Let's do it. All right, like Jessica, I'm an upstate mom this week. I feel all super bougie in my upstate momness. I'm Casey, and I'm actually normally from the Midlands, but hanging out here in Greenville tonight. I've got one daughter. She's 12. We homeschool. You know, that's not a thing for us ever, really, but for some reason, middle school sucks, so we might as well do it at home. Jessica, tell us who you are and who your kids are.
Yeah, I'm Jessica, and I normally am in the upstate. Tonight, I'm in the low country, the low country down in Hilton Head. And I have two boys. One is 12, and the other one will be 9 in a couple of short weeks.
Right on. Alex, welcome back. We missed you last week. Tell us who you are, where you are, and who your kids are.
Well, I missed y'all. I'm Alex. I'm in Charleston. I have Perry, a 1.5-year-old. I think I usually call him my crazy tiny man. And I also have a little bitty bean on the way. So
expecting mom. Good stuff.
Yeah.
And Casey joined us last week, subbing for Alex, and this week he's subbing for Melissa. So welcome back, Casey. You have the Midlands this week. So tell us who you are. Well, we know who you are now. You're Casey. Tell us about your little man.
Yeah, I'm the lone Midlands person holding it down. Yeah, my name's Casey, and I've got a 6-year-old son named Charlie.
So this is interesting because we were talking about, or the topic for tonight is cussing in front of your kids. And we have kids on all of the spectrums for tonight. So I found this super cool article. We're going to go through the stages, the ages of whether or not you can cuss in front of your kids. But some of this, I also kind of said to Jessica, I was like, I kind of want to do a little Valentine's thing. So how do we wrap cussing in front of your kids around candy and messages of love and this kind of thing? But I do think there's something to be said for the language that we use when we speak to our children. And so maybe that's the bigger, broader topic, is just like, what's the language that we use to express ourselves to our kids? And Valentine's Day gives us the perfect excuse to like buy overpriced cards and gifts and chocolate, to use those like lovey-dovey kind of language. But is that the kind of language you use on a regular basis, Jessica? What would you say like your regular vocabulary around your kids is? Is it like soft and compassionate and loving and caring and supportive? Or is it leaning to the like intolerant and just you darn kids, shake the angry fist?
No, I am loving and compassionate when I need to be, but I have boys, and the asshole word gets said quite a bit in my house. But it's something that I've said to my boys for a very long time, and they giggle when I say it. But if they're doing something that's really boneheaded, I will tell them, stop being an asshole, or if I see them developing a habit that is not a habit I want them to have, I will tell them, that's an asshole thing, and I'm not raising assholes. So that is a common word in my house.
I like it though, because I had a friend that said at one point, she said, I've become a screamer and I can't believe I'm this mom. Like, I can't believe I'm screaming at my kids. And I remember when Holly was a toddler, how frustrated you can get, and like how sometimes it feels like you just can't get their attention. So Alex and Casey, you guys have toddlers, you have little kids. Well, Casey's kid's a little older than that, but Alex, you got a toddler. Do you find like that your voice pitch changes and that like your frustration comes out in your vocabulary?
Okay, look at this. Look at that face. I can't.
So cute.
There's no frustration with that face. If anything, I always thought I would be the person that didn't talk in baby talk. But when I look at his cute face, I'm like, oh, hey, Perry. Like, I don't even sound like a person. It's so dumb. Like, he's going to start talking like that, and it's going to be really terrible. So there's not a lot of frustration just yet. There's a lot of me working on cussing less. So there's days where I'm great at it and days where I'm not. And he might pick up on the days where I'm not, but I don't know.
Yeah, we're finding substitute words. I have some substitute words. We'll talk about those later. Casey, what about you? Do you find it hard to keep your vocabulary in check when the kid starts pushing the buttons?
No, not really. I am really careful. I was in the military for 10 years, so swearing is kind of like becomes part of your DNA. It's one of the shots you get in basic training. But As I've gotten older, I've kind of reformed my language a great deal, and I work in professional environments with with people all the time and all that stuff. And so, and then I have family that's not really doesn't use that kind of language, and so I kind of have a time when I'm around close personal friends that I can let loose a little bit, and then most of the time, especially around my son, I don't because he's a repeater, and it's really easy for kids to pick up on stuff, repeat it, and then all of a sudden he's around my in-laws and he's using words that they never hear me use or something like that. And so we've just made a thing to just be careful about our language around him. So
I would say that was one of the earliest fights that Charlie and I had as Holly got into that repeater stage was because I cuss like a sailor. And what's interesting about that is like, I never cussed in front of my grandparents. I very rarely cuss in front of my students. And even when I do, I'll sort of pull it back and kind of read the room first and be like, you guys know what's coming next, right? You know what I mean? Like it's more of the sort of the comedy routine. It's never directed at them. I very rarely cuss at people. And even then it's only in traffic, right? So the cussing is always like related to simply usually to myself, or maybe it's reading the news or watching something that is frustrating to me. Charlie and I'll get into my husband, Charlie and I'll get into debates about things, and I'll get frustrated and I'll use that kind of language to describe people that are just really frustrating to me. But when Holly was very little, he would frown about that. He really did not like the idea that I was using language that he did not want her to use, which is where this cool article comes in that talks about why it just doesn't matter. Because the kids are going to go through stages anyway. And in each of these stages, they're going to have a different relationship with cuss words, regardless of what you do as a parent, which I thought was really interesting, that science is basically saying like your kids are going to figure out their own way, and keeping them sheltering them from profanity doesn't necessarily mean they're never going to use it, not even as children. I mean, even sheltering them from profanity doesn't mean they won't use it as children. So Jessica, do you think that, I'm probably not asking this question in the right way, but I want to like toss the ball to you here as far as this science is concerned. Is there a long-term effect of this? Like, did you grow up in a house where your parents cussed? Like, when did that become part of your vocabulary? Like, do you think this is a long-term thing, or is it like do kids grow out of it, or do you think they grow through it?
Well, one of my first words was shit.
Your mom's somewhere rolling her eyes like, you had to tell him that story, right?
Yeah, and my dad is probably like, woo. Yeah, I mean, I grew up when I was little, my dad and my mom, I mean, they didn't cuss all the time. It wasn't like, all the time, but I did hear them say like shit, damn, basic stuff, never like the bad cuss words. And there were, conversations, like I remember when I was really little, if I would say one and they would, you can't say that, it doesn't sound good coming from a child. So don't say that just because you hear us say it and that sort of thing. I don't think it was ever made to be like a big deal in our house. And so maybe that's why, like, we don't make it a big deal in ours. I mean, we do talk to our kids. Like, I never cussed around them when they were little. But now that they're a bit older, if I say a bad word, it's like, you can't, I'm sorry, don't say that to another adult, that sort of thing. So, I don't know. It was never a big deal in our house.
Alex, did your parents cuss at home?
So it was just me and my mom growing up, and I'm mirroring a lot of what she did because she was a lot younger when she had me. So I was about 8 when she was my age, and she went through phases and spurts where it was really bad, and then phases where there was nothing. And now I'm kind of doing that same thing. But I'm finding just overall, we talked about this a little bit on one of the most recent episodes. I'm finding overall for me, I just want to not eradicate it from my language, but I really want to mitigate it as much as possible, because for my own personality, when I'm in a bad place, that's when I want to use those words. And when I'm not feeling hopeful and when I'm not feeling present and optimistic, that's when they start coming out. So it's just my own personal conviction that I'm trying to be better. But yeah, I grew up, it was on and off, but that was, as was with most things, was kind of chaotic on and off.
I think that's funny that you say that, because I think there is sort of a negative connotation around it. Like the profanity comes out because it is a source of frustration, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to it just being a part of regular conversation or a part of regular vocabulary. Casey, what do you think? So you said in the military that everybody just uses it interchangeably, right? Did you grow up with that in your house, or like, do you think that you adapted to that?
So I actually had, if you think back to the sitcoms we used to watch as kids, the family shows, you had that kid that would show up and basically lived at the family house, you know, the neighbor kid, the Kimmy Gibbler and whatever. So I was that kid to my best friend who lived about 8 houses down. So my house, we had some swearing and stuff, my mom and my stepdad, certainly not from me. And then I would go to his house and he could say whatever he wanted. I mean, I met him in middle school and we were friends since forever. So all the years through middle school and high school and stuff, he just talked however he wanted, and it wasn't a big deal in their house. And I was always gobsmacked when I'm sitting here and watching them have a conversation, or especially if they get into like an argument or whatever, and they're like cussing at each other. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
am I like I'm Homer Simpsoning back into the bushes, you know? It made me just super uncomfortable because it felt really like not a teenager's place to swear around their parents. It just, I don't know. It's just one of those things that didn't feel ever right. And I do remember going to the military, coming back home to visit, and then my language started, you know, like I'm a man now, I'm in the military, and and out comes the language, and my parents, as gracious as they are, didn't really bat an eye and look back at that, and I'm just like, what the hell is the matter with me?
Yeah.
So,
I think it's funny that you say that. Like, maybe we need a whole episode on that in terms of just like how people talk to their parents, because I was that way too. Like, there wasn't a lot of conflict in our house, right? There wasn't fighting or yelling or emotions erupting. Like, there just wasn't any of that. And so when I went to my neighbors' houses and the kids were fighting back with their parents, like, it never would have occurred to me to fight back with my mom. Like, that wasn't even on the radar for me. So I think that's interesting. That's a little bit different, I think, than the cuss word piece, because on the cuss words, we were using them in private all day long. Like, not in front of my parents, but we definitely went through these stages. So in the show notes, and they're not posted yet because I'm going to post them with the video when it's up and ready to go, but you can get the show notes out on the blog. It's parentingporcupines.com. I'll put that website up here so people can see it. But when we get out there into the show notes, you'll get these links. And this article was on the Huffington Post, and it went through these 6 stages. So I thought we would talk about this now and kind of get into the depths of it. And the first stage, it's called the adorable little shit stage, which is about babies and babies not knowing what's going on. So it's okay to cuss in front of babies because they can't hear that. They can't absorb that. But the question is whether or not it's the tone of voice that you use, right? If it's using that language in a harsh way because it is a fight, because it is a confrontation of some kind, because it's abuse, right? Then I don't think it matters what words you're using, because the tone of voice is there. But certainly the cuss words, like, I dropped them left and right when Holly was a baby. It didn't even occur to me that was something she would ever pick up on. What do you think, Jessica? Did you cuss around your kids when they were babies?
I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure I probably did at some point, probably in the car. I'm a car cusser.
There's times when the baby just frustrates you, right? Like, you've got to be kidding me right now. I mean, you got this, Alex, right? Like the diaper changing, where the diaper just came off, and now, are you kidding me right now? We're all a mess all over again.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
there's
sure.
times when you just, go.
I feel like our memory is permanently tainted from tiredness, but I'm sure that I've said my fair share in front of tiny baby Perry, most definitely.
Yeah.
Not that he deserved it. But,
no,
but I mean,
obviously.
The circumstances. But I definitely think the tone of voice matters more at that point. I mean, my favorite scene in 3 Minutes a Baby is when he's reading the Sports Illustrated to the baby, and they go, "What are you reading to her?" And it doesn't matter what I read. it's the tone of voice I use when I read it. I mean, I read Twilight to Holly, and my niece and nephew out in Chicago, I read them the Hunger Games series because that's what I was reading when I went out there to visit them. But they don't care what you're reading to them, right? So why would they care if you were cussing in front of them? So I'm cool with that at the baby stage. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I'm like, A+, go for it, parents at the baby stage. All right, what about the foul-mouthed little mimics? This is where your kid's at right now, Casey. The mimicking stage. So are you careful what you say in front of them when they can mimic you back?
Yeah, there are some things like, so we are gigantic Hamilton fans, and so we play a lot of the songs, and there is some language here and there and stuff like that. Also, Taylor Swift has started. We've kind of been doing some Taylor Swift. Not a lot of real music that's modern that we can listen to that I know. I have to like know all the lyrics, which I'm a lyric guy, so that works. But we have to be careful what we play because it's easy for him to pick up a word and easily repeat it. So there are some things like we finally relented on Hamilton because they say damn quite a bit. And so we just say, look, this is this word. It's not for you. You're 6 and this is an adult word. And then you're going to hear it sometimes. Just know that, it's said when people get, for whatever reason, and then we just move on. And now I don't have to like hold the volume button and do the song. So, we, on some things we're moving that way, but again, we don't use it ourselves around him because it just doesn't. We just don't. We're just not those people. We save those for private conversations, when he's not around. So
there was a great tweet Lin-Manuel Miranda tweeted out right before Hamilton hit Disney Plus, where he said that to give it the right rating so that people could watch it on Disney Plus, they had to bleep out 2 of the uses of the F word. And so he tweets out, "I literally gave 2 fucks for you people." So that we can put this on Disney Plus. I was that way, I think, originally. I might have had some concerns about the music we were listening to, but this thing called Kids Bop is around where they change the lyrics to the songs, and sometimes it's songs being sung by new people, right? And it's like a sanitized version of all these songs. And Maroon 5 had a few of them, a few Kids Bop songs. And Holly came home from from carpool one day, and she was horrified that Kids Bop had ruined a Maroon 5 song because they had cut out all the dirty parts of the Maroon 5 song because it's Kids Bop, right? And she was like, "Mom, please don't make us Kids Bop. I really think it's important that we hear the original message of the original artist." And I was like, "Deal, no Kids Bop here. We will never be Kids Bopping in our car." Yep. But again, that's a music preference, right? A family preference. And the family that she was in carpool with, they Kids Bopped, and she was horrified by it, just horrified by it. But that was well before I had her listening to Octane. And now we're listening to like hard rock music, and she's like, every other word is the F bomb. She's like, "Mom, seriously, don't you even get tired of this?" I'm like, "No." All right, so the third stage is the shocked, sweary sponges. And the example that the article gave was that part in Jerry Maguire where the kid comes out and he goes, and he's all like shocked by it, right? Did your kids go through this, Jessica, where like maybe it was when they first started to understand that cuss words were not okay, or like they weren't allowed to use them, that they were like shocked by them when they heard them?
Jackson, not so much. Caldwell, I don't know that he was really shocked. It's because again, like we didn't use those words around them when they were little, but more recently, Caldwell has become aware of these words, more aware at almost 9. And so it's very much if I say a bad word, like if I drop something and I say shit, or damn it, he'll be like, "Mom, don't cuss." Like he tells me, "Don't cuss." And so apparently he felt like I was doing it a lot. And I don't think I do a lot, but he says I do, and he's wrong. But so we struck a deal that every time I said a cuss word, I'd give him a quarter. And so, but here's what he does. He pushes my buttons to get me to say bad words. Yeah. And so he'll get me to the point where I'm like, "Damn it." And he'll be like, "You owe me a quarter." I'm like, "No, I don't, because you made me do it."
Oh
That
my
was the
God.
very first time Holly cussed in front of me. We came out of the grocery store and I was like, oh, we forgot the popsicles. And she goes, damn it. And I was like, damn it. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the right time and use of that word. We should go back inside and buy popsicles. She's like, okay. So later I'm telling my sister about it. And she's like, what did you do? I was like, what could I do? I was just like, you're right about that. Like I felt that before I could even say it, she had said it. Right. So I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
That's
And
such
then
a good reaction. Honestly, no matter what kind of home the kid's being raised in, like that's the reaction that needs to happen is the mom not freaking out,
Yeah.
just going with it, kind of giving the kids some props, right? Because that teaches them the right place to use it.
Yeah,
That's
well,
cool.
she
I like
loves
that.
Mumford and Sons, and so there's a great
Oh,
song, Mumford and Sons. I really fucked this up this time, didn't I? And she and I are riding down the road, and it gets to that part of the song. We're singing at the top of our lungs, and it gets to that part, and she goes, "I really," and she just kind of looked at me like, "Am I allowed to sing this part?" I was like, "Go for it. The music's up. Nobody cares. Sing it at the top of your lungs." That's Marcus Mumford and all his writing glory, right? My grandmother used to say, "Please do not use profanity. It indicates that your vocabulary is inadequate." I was
okay.
like, I am not teaching my 5-year-old to say that because that's pretentious as hell. We're
Right.
not doing. What do you think, Alex? Do you think that mimic stage is coming for you? Do you think your kid's going to parrot these words back to you?
Yes. So here's what Perry does right now. This is just an excuse to talk about Perry. I'm sorry. With anything that he finds, it doesn't have to be a phone, but I have a phone in my hands. He'll put it up to his ear. He'll go, "Hello," just like mom, right? Like I guess. So I know that the mimicking is coming because he's already doing it with little things like that. He's a year and a half, and it's on its way. So
Yeah.
just another reason why I'm gonna taper off a little bit.
I like it. What about the shocked? Casey, is your kid shocked? Is he easily shocked by what he hears? Has he heard the swear words and been?
I don't think so because we've been in lockdown because of COVID, and we homeschool him, so he really doesn't have a group of friends to hang out with. He doesn't see outside, like those words just aren't even in his universe. And so if he were to hear them, he probably wouldn't think anything of them except that he memorizes whole books, audio books and stuff, and can repeat them word for word later on. And so if there's something that we're playing that has lyrics or something in it, he will just sing it along like it's no big deal and not know, he might ask it because he doesn't understand that word because we don't ever use it. But so, if he were to hear something like that, it would just be as foreign as seeing like some kind of medical term. And it's like, what is that? Versus shock because he knows it's bad. And then somebody, uses it or whatever around him. So we're not quite there. And I don't know that we will be, but yeah. So kind of like,
I remember sitting on the driveway with our neighbors and some of the neighborhood kids being shocked when I mean, 3 beers in, the F-bomb's coming. It's like an adjective at that point.
No
like it's
stopping
just,
it.
it is amplifying everything that comes after it in the way that an adjective is supposed to, right? So, and I remember there being a scene where one of the girls was, kind of looked at Holly like, "Oh my gosh, your mom cussed," and Holly's like, "That's just how she talks." Or like, "That's just her vocabulary. That's just who she is." And I don't know if I'm like, okay. I think at the time I was kind of like, "Huh, should I be worried about that?" And then my mom was really upset about it. And my mom was like, "Holly really is concerned about you cussing and you really shouldn't cuss in front of her." And so I was like, "Really?" So I look at Holly, I was like, "Do you feel that way?" And she's like, "I don't know what she's talking about. I never said that." I'm like, okay. So, all right. So the number 4 is evolving curse machines. As they grow toward teenhood, they may use the swear on the sly to gain street cred. I know this is true. When I was 12 years old, we came walking around the house. We were all playing. It's dark outside, a whole little gang of kids, right? And we come walking around the house, and the one kid had said something, and I was like, "Yeah, no shit, Sherlock." And we get around the house, and one of the parents is standing there, and he goes, "Hey, language." And that was like the first time I'd ever been called down on language at like age 11. And to this day, it sticks with me. Like I can remember exactly where we were when I got called down on my language by Mr. Du Bois. And so I'd catch Holly doing that too, like cussing with her friends, right? Not at them, but with them, and sort of doing it on the sly. So, okay, probably not the younger one, but Jackson, right, is at this age now, Jessica, right, where he's got his friends he wants to show off for.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm not going to be that mom who says my kid would never, because I'm perfectly aware that my kids probably will at some point do all the things, because that's what kids do.
Mm-hmm.
But Jackson, his personality is more of, when it comes to impressing people, he uses things that he's good at to impress people. So he doesn't, I don't think as much about him using cuss words, and I don't know what Caldwell's going to do, because Caldwell's Caldwell. So
Totally unpredictable, that Caldwell.
yeah, for sure.
I'm kind of worried about the evolving curse machine in terms of Holly using these on the sly, and then this becoming her vocabulary around people who don't know her. Like that's the bigger concern I have, is like, I'm at this age, I have enough credibility. I feel like I have enough credibility. Like, my language is my language. If you don't like it, we're just not going to be friends, right? Like, we're just not on the same page. But I'm not going to lose my job over it. You know what I mean? And that sort of thing. She's still coming up through an age period where she's got to earn people's approval. And so I worry about that language being something that teachers take the wrong way, that other parents take the wrong way, right? That she gets labeled as a bad kid because of that particular piece. And so we talk a little bit about that too. And that's the stage number 5, which is the luck pushing years, as they try to see what they can get away with. So I keep telling her, you can say anything you want to in front of me. Be careful what you say in front of dad, and certainly don't say these things in front of other adults, because they're not going to judge you. They will judge you on your vocabulary, not on who you are and what you are. And so it's not a good idea to go out there, with the I was just thinking of like a pirate flag, with a pirate flag waving that you're, a crazy kid, and then they don't want their kids to hang out with you. So have you had that experience, Casey, where you've been, or let me go to Alex next. Have you had that experience where you've been discriminated against because of your vocabulary?
Oh my gosh. Not in the way that you're talking about, but we did live in Syracuse for a little while, and people would make fun of me for the way I say like fixin' or a buggy or whatever, but I don't think for cussing. I just can't remember. I was really good at hiding stuff because I was in trouble all the time. So I was the kid that if I was bad, it was like, this is getting deep. It was like super in secret. Like, parents did not know, right? Because I got accustomed to being one way in front of people and then another way and in front of other people, which is not good at all. But there's some honesty for you.
As a straight deep confession for 7:30.
Yeah, for real.
Thank you. Welcome to our Valentine's edition, where we all talk about the deepest confession we can think. No, you're right about that. Because aren't we taught, though, in the South, that there's a public persona and a private persona? Isn't there a sort of a mask that we put on in the South? And my older sister used to say people were so fake here, but part of it is just trying to keep the peace, right? Like, not wanting to upset other people or disturb other people, or even really show who you are for the possibility that you might be ridiculed. Casey, have you had that experience? Are you familiar with the mask that we wear as far as Southerners are concerned?
Oh yeah, from many aspects. From being a guy in the military and dating a southern girl and her whole family, and I come from lots of dysfunction and things in my life, my family life and stuff like that. And I come and hang out with this family, and nobody in their family's ever been divorced. They don't swear, they go to church every, those kinds of things. And I'm like, I just have to, okay, we're going to turn regular Casey off for a minute here. We're going to open him up, take out in-law Casey, and you do get to where it is 2 different people, and you kind of have to change that. And what I've kind of done is more adopted that as my regular person, and that's a personal tension. I mean, we're getting super deep, but I mean, that's something to realize. I mean, I'm 41, and it's like, when do I start living like I want to and being who I am actually, and saying like, hey man, this is who it is. But aside from faith, aside from language, I mean, think about all of us being libertarians. How often do you have to clamp down when you're around people that start talking about politics? And you just know that it's like, that is not the hill to die on or the fight to fight in at that moment. And it's just like, yeah, just, yep, totally.
Yep.
And you just,
Happens a lot.
you do it because you don't fight every fight. And I think that the language thing is a concession that you make as well, because you do value the way that people think about you, for whatever reason, because you want to keep that relationship healthy and let them not judge you based on something superficial like that. But also, in business relationships and stuff like that, like, it in our culture right now, it undermines your credibility to be a certain way away from the norm. And part of that is language, part of that is politics, part of that is religion, those kinds of things. And so I think a lot of people wear that mask. It's not just serial swearers, and libertarians and such.
Well,
Real
I'm going to
quick,
tell you. Go, Alex, go.
I was going to say, I just super quick. I know this isn't the topic for the evening, but I talked to my counselor about it because it is such an issue in the South, and as a Southern woman, and just being raised being two different people. And I was like, how do I do this? How do I be one person all the time? And she gave me some tools, and she was like, now when you get to the end of this long, self-discovery journey, she was like, your real self is going to be less than your fake self. And then your real self is going to be a little bit better than the self that you've been hiding. She's like, they just meet in the middle. So it feels weird. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because there is a way to merge them. You're just left feeling a little less than on one hand and then a little better than on another. It's kind of a weird thing.
I don't know.
Well,
I gotta argue. I gotta fight with your counselor on that, because I think I got to a place where I'm being for real. Like I did that for years. Like I wanted to be that self. It was certainly that self that my in-laws liked better, right?
Okay.
And it was the clothes that I wore to my professional job, my 8 to 5, right? And at some point I was just like, I'm done with this. I don't want to live this way anymore. I want to go back to the person that I remember, that I believe I truly am. And what's interesting about that is my husband, this is the woman he fell in love with. And when I started, like, I pulled my concert t-shirts on, I've got my flannel shirts, I've got my tats. Like when this stuff became, like when I kind of emerged back out of this, like what was happening in my 20s and 30s, he goes, there she is. There's the girl I fell in love with at 18 years old.
Oh, that's so cool.
Because when you're brave enough to be your authentic self and who you're really meant to be, people are going to leave you. They are going to jump ship. And you know what? Let them go. Because I cannot say that strong enough. I firmly believe that. I'm going to share a podcast with you guys. I'll put it in the show notes too, that I did recently with a gal named Jackie. She's in her 50s, and she and I were talking in depth about this. And I was like, man, I ain't got time for that shit. If people are looking for fake Casey, they can go back to Cenex Corporation when I was in my 30s, because that girl does not teach at the University of South Carolina. This is who they get. And they like her. They keep paying her. Jessica, you were going to
I do want to add a different perspective of this, because growing up, our conversations, it was never that I had to be this person with this group of people and this other person with another group of people. I'm from the South too. I was born and raised in the South. And growing up, it was more of a hospitality thing, not to cuss in front of other people, because it was impolite. It wasn't that you were trying to put on airs or be somebody you weren't. It was just, it was a comfort thing. Like, you don't want to make someone else uncomfortable. And if they're not comfortable with you saying cuss words, then you don't want to say that and make them uncomfortable just because you want to say a bad word. Like, you can use other words and they're not uncomfortable, and everybody has a pleasant experience. And so I think that's really the way that I talk to my kids about cussing is, it's really funny when people say bad words. It's funny when mommy says a bad word. But don't ever use that around other people, because you don't know how it's going to be received, and you might make somebody else uncomfortable. And so for me, it's not, in our house, it's not really a matter of being good or bad or being one person and another person. It's just polite.
But again, are we walking that line between, because I said this before and I believe this, like, I don't want other people to think badly of Holly. I don't want them to judge her for the language that she's using, even though I feel like in my presence, she can use whatever language is appropriate to express herself. And at the same time, at some point, as grown people, you should graduate into the freedom, right, of the liberty of saying, like, I am who I am, and I'm okay with who I am, and other people, I don't know, like, I reject the concept that other people's comfort is more important than my comfort. Does that make sense? And I don't mean to say that in a way that, like, I'm just going to go cussing around and, like, who cares what they think? But at the same time, it's like, if I'm using the language, it's intentional. I'm using it because I have a reason to be using it, and I'm trying to be specific about something. So I don't know.
Right, but a kid isn't going to understand that. Like, it's better for a kid to understand, like, this is polite, this is not polite, and then when they're 20 and they're out in the real world, then they can determine at what point they want to use it. But I mean, like me, like, I might use it all the time around my husband, but I'm not going to use it around my boss. Right? Like, even if we're not in a conference call, if we're just sitting there shooting the breeze, I'm not going to use that same language around my boss that I might use around my husband, because you have to learn when is the appropriate time to use that language if you choose to do so. Some people choose to never do so, and that's great. I personally, I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. I have a t-shirt that says it. But you know, I think that it's important that, like, I hear you, Casey, but I don't think that's really the point. I think there's a line there where it's when it's appropriate and when it's probably not the best choice of words to use.
Well, that's one of the most beautiful things about being individuals is that there is so much nuance, and everything within us is really a threshold that we all just personally have, that other people's thresholds are set differently. And thank God they're all different, because we learn from one another. We have fun with one another. We can see other people doing something differently and think, that's not the way I do it, but that's a cool way to go about it. I just like things like this are so nuanced within our very own personalities and the thresholds that we all have.
And I would say too, I think I want to raise the kind of kid that accepts other people for who they are and what they are. And in that case too, it's okay, I'm going to tell you there's some polite society, these are the rules, this and that, right? But recognize that when people come into our home, we make them feel as comfortable as possible, and we enable that freedom and that feeling that they belong here, whether they whatever their vocabulary is.
It's good.
All right, Casey, final thought on this. We didn't really get to the candy part, so let's do that real quick. Let's go in the opposite direction of my screen. We'll go Casey, then Alex, then Jessica. What are your Valentine's Day plans for your hubby and your babies?
For my wife, she doesn't know this yet, but
she's about to.
She's about to. She'll watch this after Valentine's Day probably. We don't really do that stuff because, Valentine's Day is kind of trite. We really try to work on making not everyday Valentine's Day. That sounds ridiculous and cliche, but I'm a words language person, and so I'm very intentional about those kinds of things. And she's, tries to speak my language. I just try to speak hers throughout the year. And so Valentine's Day is just kind of another day for us. Plus everything's super expensive and crowded. So I did sneak and get her something. I got her a coffee grinder because we hand grind coffee right now, and it's super quiet too because those things are crazy loud.
Yeah, they are.
So that'll be here probably tomorrow or Monday. We usually do, if we do anything for Valentine's Day, we usually do it on the 15th. That way restaurants are empty, everything's on sale, and that way,
everything's on sale. I bought you these roses the next day. Good stuff. Alex, what about you? Do you guys have some lovey-dovey plans?
So we actually celebrate today, the 13th. It's the day that Sean proposed, actually 13 years ago today. So it's just our special day. There's a longer story as to why he proposed the day before Valentine's Day. Suffice it to say, I was sure to tell him that I need my own holiday for any sort of special thing. I don't want to share it with other already taken holidays. So we went out to downtown Charleston and had a really nice dinner, and I ate my entire weight in food because that's what I do anyway, and now I'm pregnant, so I do it even more.
Hooray! God, I miss being pregnant. That's the one thing I miss about being pregnant is like chocolate milkshakes every day. Good stuff. Well, congratulations.
So
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Jessica, what about you guys? Lovey-dovey plans?
No, we don't normally celebrate Valentine's Day. We get the boys' cards every year, and then we'll probably do something with them Monday night when we get home. But we actually met on February the 15th, and so that's kind of, we celebrate that more than we do like Valentine's Day.
Nice.
So, but we did treat ourselves this year because it's the 10th anniversary of us meeting. So we met 10 years ago on Monday. So we came down to Hilton Head for the weekend. We boarded the dog. We left the
I thought you were going to
kids.
say you boarded the kids.
Boarded the kids.
Yep.
Bless the dog.
So we came down for just a quiet weekend, and it's rainy and lazy. And so it's been really nice just to relax.
Good.
great.
That's good stuff. Well, congratulations to you guys too.
Mhm.
Charlie and I for years got each other fart cards on Valentine's.
That's awesome.
It was like whatever card you could find with a fart joke on it. That was the
Amazing.
Valentine's Day exchange.
That is
for
hilarious.
years and years. And then now that our daughter is in her preteens, he buys roses for her and for me.
Oh.
And this year, because I'm here, they're still. I'm going to see them tomorrow. But she sent me a text message. She said, "How do you cut roses?" And I was like, "With scissors?" And she goes, "No, I mean, I have all these roses. How do I cut them?" And I said, "Oh, are you giving them to your friends?" Because they were having a little cookie decorating party tonight. And she goes, "No, Dad bought them for you and me. Happy Valentine's Day."
Aww.
What is happening right now? So anyway, so thank you to my husband if he's
love
watching for the roses. We got those and little cards. I definitely splurged on the card and the candy because why not? It's the one time a year we can all eat these peanut butter cups shaped like hearts. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. Next week, I don't know what we're going to do next week. I was going to give a little preview for next week, but who knows? Melissa will be back next week. We might have Casey with us. We might have Alex. We don't have any idea. Every week is a new adventure. Thanks for subscribing. Be sure to like the show, and subscribe to the show. By all means, leave your comments on Facebook. We're glad to have you guys with us. That's it. Good night. Mwah.